All right, today we're going to be working through Unit 5 test review, and we're going to go through both reviews that I gave you in preparation for the test. So just follow along with me and write down anything that I write down up here on the board. So starting with number 1, it just wanted us to label each of the following as linear, exponential, or quadratic. So what I did here was I looked at my graph, saw that this is a curved line with an asymptote. So that tells me automatically that a curved line with an asymptote is exponential. For my next line, I noticed that the line was a straight line with no curve in it whatsoever. So straight lines, I know, by definition, are linear. And then the last one, we saw that this line is a U-shape. Now this one is a upside down U-shape, but a parabola, which we call it, is known to be quadratic. So by definition, this one would be quadratic. So 3 easy problems there. Definitely will be on your test, so make sure you study that. Next, we had our equations, doing the same thing with those. Now with these, we pay attention to the power. So here we have a highest power of 2, so that's going to be quadratic. Next, we have a power of x. So power of x means that it's exponential. And then the last one, we have no power above the x, understood to be 1, therefore this is linear. Next, we have points, which we could also relate as tables. So pay attention to the y values, and whatever the y values do will tell you what the answer is. So here we've got 10, 20, 40, 80. So here I'm multiplying by 2 each time, and anytime I multiply by 2, that is exponential. Next, we have 10, 6, 2, negative 2. So here we're subtracting by 4. So when we add or subtract a number, that is linear. Then we have 4, 1, 0, 1. So I see there's 2 1s repeating. Therefore, it has to be the same on both sides, and shapes that are symmetric are parabolas, and parabolas here are going to be quadratic. Now you could also find the first and second difference here if you needed to. Like the difference between 4 and 1 is going to be minus 3. The difference between 1 and 0 is minus 1. The difference between 0 and 1 would be plus 1. Then when we find the second difference here, that's going to be negative 3 minus 1. The difference there is going to be plus 2. And then negative 1 to positive 1 would be plus 2. So when the second difference is the same, that is also known as quadratic. In our next problem, number 2, we said find the average rate of change over the interval from negative 1 to 2 for each of the following functions. So negative 1 to 2 means that I'm looking at the x values where x is negative 1 and x is positive 2. So a couple ways you could go about doing this problem. One, you could look at the table and tell the difference. So from negative 1 to positive 2, I know I have to add 3. And then from 2 to 16, I know I need to add 14. Now, you can do it this way, or you can set up your points and use the formula m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. But either way will work out here. So, once I do that, I identify my change in y is going to be 14. So that's going to be 14 over. And then on x change is going to be 3. So 14 divided by 3 would be my answer. But I can actually go ahead and write this answer as a decimal. And the decimal answer for this is going to be 4.6 repeating. So 4.6 repeating. Now for function b, all you have to do is just look at the slope. Since this is in linear form, all right, or slope-intercept form, we know that the slope here is going to be 3. And since a linear problem is constant, we know that the slope or the rate of change is going to be 3. So here we have 2 answers, 3 and then 4.6. Next, it says the following graph. For the following graph, what x values are g of x greater than f of x. So here we have g of x is going to be our quadratic, and then we have f of x is going to be their exponential. So currently, if we look at the quadratic or exponential, we'll notice that it's below everything, but then when it gets to this point, it's going to be changing to higher. So that's going to be at negative 1. And then this is going to be higher, 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 until it reaches this point, which is located at 2. So from -1 to 2, we have the line being higher. Then it's going to go back to lower just for a brief period, and then once it hits 4, it's going to cross again. So then it's going to cross at 4, and we notice it's going to stay higher. You can see 4 here. All right, my bad, I got a little crooked there. All right, but then it's going to be higher, 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 and we know that exponential is going to eventually exceed. Therefore, at this point, it exceeds all the way to infinity. So, very simple problem there. You just need to pay attention to where the graph is above the x-axis. In number 4, it says, which of the following expresses a constant rate? Remember that constant rate, constant, I need to go ahead and know is linear. So, which one of these problems is linear? So, in A, it says that it increases by 4%. That is exponential. So, it's not that one. Next, it says that it increases by $5 each. Each is the key word there. That is linear. And then the last one, we've got a bunch of numbers. This actually looks like it's going to be quadratic. So the one that's going to be constant has to be linear. So the linear choice in this problem would be B. Remember that linear is described using the word each, per, or every. In number 5, we have which plan will you save more money over the 60-month period if you start with $100 in your account? So we're going to have to set up 2 equations. So we already are starting off with $100 in our account. And in this one it says that we increase our balance by $20 a month. So we're just adding $20 for every month. In the second one it says you increase your balance by 10% each year. Now this requires us to use the formula y equals a, parentheses, 1 plus or minus r to the x power, since we're dealing with percentages. So the formula here is actually going to look like this. Y equals, we start off with $100, and then it's going to increase. So that's going to be 1 plus, and then we're going to increase by 10%. I'm running out of space. Let me drop down here. All right, we're going to have y equals 100, parentheses 1 plus 0.10 or 10%, and then we're going to raise that to the x power. You can ignore this. All right, so that's going to give us our equation. So to figure out the answer to these 2 equations, we know that x is going to be the time, so we're going to plug in 60 to determine what the final cost would be here. So if you substitute in 60 for the x's and use a calculator to solve, you should get for this top answer $1,300. For the bottom, for plan B, you should get an answer, and this answer is a little bit crazier. You should get an answer of $30,448.16. So when I take these two problems and I subtract them, that's how I find the difference is subtracting. So I take 30,448.16 and subtract it from 1,300, and I should come up with the final answer here of the price difference being $29,148.16. So a pretty easy equation there, but we have to know how to plug in or set up our equations. Number 6, what type of function eventually exceeds any other function? That's simple. Exponential. We talked about that in class. Told you need to know that. That is on the test tomorrow, so make sure you know that answer. All right, number 7. Number 7 says, find the average rate of change for the following functions. And given the interval of 0 is less than x is less than 2, and write them in order from greatest to least. So, first one, we got linear. It's an equation. It's really easy to find the slope here. All it is m equals -3. So slope or rate of change is easy to find for that one. Next, we have from 0 to 2. So from 0 to 2 is going to be an increase of +2. And then from 4 to 16 is going to be an increase of +12. So y's over x's, so that's going to be 12 over 2, which is going to give us an answer of 6. And then for the final one over here, we're looking at 0 and 2. So 0's x value, if I follow it up, is going to be located right here. And the x value at 2 is going to be located right here. So when I look at that, I'm going to start at 1, and I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3. So that's a rise of 3. And then I'm going to run 1, 2. So that's going to be a run of 2. So 3 divided by 2 will give me my answer, which is going to be 1.5. So when I compare these three answers, I'll go ahead and circle that. I want to write them in order from greatest to least. So in this case, the greatest one was 6, and that is the table. So I'm going to write table. The next greatest one, this one's negative, so the next greatest one would be 1.5. So that's going to be the graph. And then the last one here would be the negative, which would be the equation. So the last one would be the equation. All right, number 8, it says, is the following functions even, odd, or neither? So remember, we got to pay attention to the exponents here. So in this one, we've got 1x. So we've only got 1x. So we know that 1x is going to be odd. So therefore, that equation's odd. Here we've got 2x's and no x's. So 2x's is going to be even. No x's is going to be even. Therefore, this one is even. And then in our last example, we have 2x's, we have 1x. So here we've got even and odd. So even and odd can't go together, though. Therefore, this one is neither. So very easy to answer those questions. That should be a no-brainer for tomorrow's test. So just make sure you know the difference in even, odd, and neither. All right, last question on this one, the transformation problem, a big question here. So with the transformation problem, first one it said was shift up. It gave you the answer to that one, so no questions there. To shift down 1 unit, that's going to be f of x is equal to x squared minus 1. To shift left 1 unit, that's going to be f of x is equal to parentheses. We have to set up our parentheses here. So left would be plus 1 squared. Let me double check that. Yes. All right, and then shift right 1 unit, that would be f of x is equal to x minus 1 squared. Remember, those work opposite of each other. After that, we've got reflect over the x-axis, so that would be f of x equals negative x squared. Then stretch by a factor of 3, that would be f of x equals 3x squared. Then we have shrink vertically by a factor of 1/3, that is 1/3 x squared. And then for the final one, we look at all these starred equations. You'll see the star beside the word. So in this one, we've got f of x. We know the first thing that comes is the reflection. So we have a star that is being reflected. Therefore, that is negative. Then we got, we can't do parentheses yet. All right, let's hold off on that. Then we've got stretch. So stretch by a factor of 3. So that would be a 3. Now we can do our parentheses x. Then it also has shift left. So left is going to be plus 1 squared. And then we have up 1. So up 1 would be a plus 1 on the end. So that would give us our final equation. All right, this will take us through the video. If you have any questions, like I said, feel free to email me. I'll do a second video below that's working the second study guide. So like I said, if you have questions on it, go to the next video.